Hello, this is Gayl Killough, and this is my presentation of interview findings for EDLE 732. My statement of problem, or as I'm currently thinking of it as a statement of crisis, we are about to lose our dedicated funding for schools to assist homeless students. And for Indiana, this is the only funds that are dedicated to assist homeless students. There's a couple layers to this. First, the Trump administration has recommended moving the dedicated funding into a larger consolidated program. And but more importantly, Indiana Governor Braun is wanting Indiana to receive all of the federal education funds as one block grant. This is something that's never done before, but this further dilutes the funding for homeless students and means that we're going to have to advocate in a competitive format literally this fall in order to have funding that will assist homeless students. And even though there's a mandate for it, doesn't necessarily mean that mandate gets funding. So we're going to have to be actively advocating so that we have dedicated funding for schools to assist homeless students. The reason for choosing this topic is based on what I'm considering a real life crisis. We're losing our funding for homeless students. This is among losing funding for community development and some of the supportive services as well. So I'm really looking at what I'm learning from this class and have learned from our courses to basically advocate for homeless students in addition to creating a curricular plan. This is a new twist on the gap analysis, and technically it's actually a combination of both gap and root analysis, although I feel like there's more that can be done with the gap analysis. But the twist is that we're anticipating a new current state, and that current state is there's no dedicated funding for schools to assist homeless students. And then the desired state is obviously that we want enough funding, and it is extremely frustrating and annoying to me that I'm having to have this kind of analysis in the year 2025. This funding should be not up for debate. It's something that we should be working to, really be able to dive deep and go more in depth into helping, homeless, vulnerable, all students. But I am literally fighting for this funding to exist for homeless students, and we'll also be fighting for, near homeless and vulnerable students, disabled as well. The root analysis is really just political and has to do with that back to when the U.S. Department of Education was created, going back in 1979, President Jimmy Carter. There were students not being served by the states in schools and educational programs. So the federal government basically stepped in with federal funds so that vulnerable populations, including homeless students, received funding, and this, kind of carried through when all the homeless funding was consolidated in the mid mid 80s. So, but this is something where I mean, I'm just going to be point blank. The states don't prioritize vulnerable populations as there's more popular things to fund. So I realize working as local government employment, we don't ever have enough money, and states don't either. But this is really something where we really need to be thinking about what our priorities are for life in general. I interviewed four people for my interviews, and I have given them pseudonyms, which I think are very clever and cute, but I can't explain them because then I lose the value of the pseudonyms. But they will be Bread, Club Med, Red, and Thread, and I like that I could rhyme them. Three of the original people was not able to interview in time for the assignment. I still have set up interviews with them, as I think it will be helpful to really practice at this interview process. And it would actually kind of be fun if I wasn't squeezed for time. And I just think it will be helpful to also interview them. And I've already picked out some potential pseudonyms for them as well. The first interview subject that I'm reviewing, I have nicknamed them Bread. And the comment that had the most impact on me when I asked how they felt about assisting homeless students, and they said that they were grateful for the aid they received, and that they really felt like with more collaboration with strategic planning, that we could really have a greater impact on assisting homeless students, and that it doesn't even require a lot of money if used properly. And they really emphasize the need for more involvement from homeless students. What I really liked about them when I was interviewing them is you could tell that they really have high expectations for the homeless students that they currently work with, and they really do encourage them to do their best. I have nicknamed the second person that I reviewing for the interview as Club Med. I wish I could tell the clever story that inspired that, but I can't. But they really have not thought about how they'd be impacted if these services were not provided. It just they are able to do what they need to do because the schools are taking care of this. And they really emphasize the importance of the McKinney-Vento liaison and how extremely important that is. And because that position exists, it really allows them to then focus on the households while the schools are providing for the educational needs of the student. The third person I interviewed, I gave the pseudonym of Red. They have served in both an influential school and a poorer school. And while this is obvious, it really had impact on me when we were doing the interview. But that schools have students in poverty, they need to provide a lot more resources to students. So, and it's odd because oftentimes they may even have less resources, but they really emphasize the need that schools have to provide more services and spend more funds on those that have greater needs in life in general. And I learned about the different roles of the counselors and social workers and really learned about the logistics of the schools. They once again emphasize the importance of the McKinney-Vento liaison, and basically, from their standpoint, they don't really distinguish between their students if they're homeless or not homeless. They just really enjoy providing counseling and help to the students, and their face really lit up when they were talking about working with students. And they never mentioned the term, but they talked a lot about the two generational approach. And they gave lots of examples, so I was not able to really use quotes for them, but they had a lot of great information. The final interview that I'm reviewing, I have nicknamed Thread. They have recently moved to a new city, a new school district, with a similar position, but they spend a lot of time sharing different examples. I didn't feel comfortable trying to do a direct quote because they use very specific examples and I didn't want to give away too much. But for that, but they were really excited and positive about their new school experience, and while they were completely positive and complimentary to their previous school district, I could tell that there is some relief where they get to be in a school where there's more resources, and it helps them to be able to do their job better and really enjoy the experience. And so they emphasize that having more resources not only helps students but also helps the educator as well. In terms of themes and codes, I just recently got a Otter AI business account with unlimited downloads at this point. So I was having a lot of fun with that new software as much as I could, being pressed for time. Other than the subject words, homeless and students, the Otter AI gives you keywords, so I relied on that at first. And by far and wide, the most common word was collaboration. Um, all the other keywords combined were still not as much as the term used for collaboration. So I thought that was very interesting. And then there was also similar words collaboration that are used frequently, relationship building, wraparound services, really emphasize the importance of student teacher relationships and how that has helped homeless students and helps homeless students. And but something that surprised me and makes sense in a way, but domestic violence was frequently mentioned. They felt like there needed to be more for this. So I think I'm going to reach out with Albion, YWCA, on that. They do educational programs, but perhaps um, maybe there needs to be something done differently with that. But I will share that information with them in general. Overall, the importance of the McKinney-Vento liaison. This person was frequently praised, and they just generally didn't know how homeless students could be helped without that position, and that position allows them basically not to have to worry about homeless students as that's such a critical position. But something I found very interesting once I was digging into the text, and I'm glad that I did this and didn't rely on keywords, is so much talk was about the two generational approach, but no one, and I mean absolutely no one, actually used this term, but it was actually talked about almost second to collaboration. So I feel like my theme is labeled as something that wasn't actually specifically mentioned. And it's something though, I think this is kind of fun. I wish I had more time, but I'm going to try this with some other transcripts as well, and kind of have use the process. In my previous classes and working on my way to having a dissertation with Evans for Promise Neighborhood, I had been focused more on neighborhood as my dissertation focus, and really looking at neighborhood building as a form of pre-prevention, so like a homeless pre-prevention. And so this I went differently because of the current crisis, but I'm thinking I want to go back to more of the neighborhood emphasis for the dissertation, but I did learn a lot for this, and I enjoyed the assignment. And since is not really a lot of quantitative data that I can use to showcase the success, qualitative analysis is really offering ways to make that point and to show some evidence based approaches. And I generally learn more from the interviews than I thought I would have.